with our host, Stacie Schlichtenmeyer. Stacie, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Great to hear. Not too bad. You did, I guess, tell me, I don't know if this was in confidence or not, but you said you got pretty heavy coffee, 4 shots maybe in there this morning, so you're ready to go.
Yes, yeah, I'm trying to stay in my chair, so
Yeah.
bear with me. But yes, I'm caffeinated.
A little jealous over there. Might have to head that way after this. But last week we left off. We talked about kind of the baby steps into selling, and it was a lot of the pre-work, getting everything ready before you're actually, I guess, officially in air quotes, ready to sell or are selling. As we now step into, okay, we've gotten in contact with you, we've gotten our ducks in a row, we've made our renovations, done different things around the home to make sure our home is ready to sell and we feel comfortable to sell. Now it's that, I want to say, official listing process where you're putting your home on the market. That transition, there's a lot we're going to talk about, but that first kind of step, when we're working with you, we're ready to sell our home, we're ready to put it on the market. What is that timeline? Because in my head, I'm thinking, okay, there are a couple things we have to do. When you look at a listing, what's the first thing you normally look at? Pictures, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that's going to take
Yes.
some time, some scheduling, some logistics. What are these first couple steps when you are listing that home?
So yes, obviously the timeline really depends on the seller. If it's something that's like, we're ready to go, how quickly can we list? We could do that in a week or less, to be honest. So we have a photographer, a professional photographer that will come in and we will be there every step of the way. We even offer like some light staging if the home is empty or could, benefit from some of that. And so then they're going to showcase the house, in its best light. And then that's going to take maybe 24 hours to get back. It's really impressive. Technology is amazing these days. So then after that, we're going to be building the listing. So we're going to be building all of that information. We also verify that information, obviously, with the seller and the public tax records. At this point, we really want to make the house stand out. So we are also working with the seller to figure out, what is it that they love about the house, right? And so taking that time to figure out, again, like on the front end, like what helped them fall in love with the house, what they love about it, the community, the neighborhood, because that's just going to help us when we go to list the house, to kind of show it in its best light.
That staging process, and it probably varies depending on what the market's doing, time of the year, right? If you have a house listed to sell, it's in great shape. You know as a realtor which ones are going to go quickly and which ones aren't.
Sure.
But maybe there are some where you kind of have to massage it a little bit and say, maybe we could stage it like this, or here's an area of your home, maybe if you're in it right now, you're not in it, that we need to make sure it looks good to capture the attention of a potential buyer. Are there areas you're kind of looking, or first places you always start to look when it comes to that listing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if someone's living in a house, we just have too much stuff. We just all have too much stuff, and it's okay because we live there. But when we are going to sell, we have to get rid of stuff. And that's really hard for a lot of people to do. And so whether it is that you're just getting rid of stuff or you're relocating stuff, I know that that can be a really big problem for a lot of sellers, kind of that process. But really, we encourage people, if you're living in a house, when you go in, get rid of half your stuff, because you want people to be able to see themselves in the space, and you also, that space is going to automatically look a whole lot larger. And so then for those homes maybe that are empty on the other side, walking in, you would think like, oh, it looks like there's so much space in this kitchen and this living room because it's empty. But I honestly, to the contrary, like people, they kind of struggle seeing that space as anything when it's empty. So you can do like virtual staging, but honestly, it's not that difficult to pull in a couch or a couple of chairs, an end table, and it really just makes the space look so much nicer. Also, with technology and AI, I always try to be super mindful. You want to show the seller's house like in the best light, but you don't want to bamboozle people, right? The last thing you want is for people to show up at the house and go, oh wow, that doesn't look anything like the pictures, and them to be disappointed. Like that's not going to help anybody. So while you obviously want to do the best job, you want to show off the house, you really want to be super mindful of that. So that's why I just try to be very weary of like virtual staging or AI photos. And if you do anything like that, it's totally fine. I just like to be transparent. So I would probably, offer a picture with and without that just to show those types of things. But there are a lot of different things you can do, light staging versus just kind of like decluttering to, help you when you go to sell your home.
Feels like in your experience, at least based on what you said, the minimalist approach is best to catch a potential buyer. Is that
Sure.
what you agree
Yeah,
with?
absolutely. Yeah.
And looking at what makes buyers stop at a listing or look at a listing. Price is a big thing, but before we talk about setting that price, last thing with that staging process, it is a psychology, right? It's a psychology that's gonna sell your home. You are selling your home to somebody. I'm sure a lot of that you have to talk with the seller and kind of help them understand from the buyer's perspective. And maybe it helps because they are also buyers. Maybe they're looking to buy that next home. When people are coming into that home for that showing or they're checking things out, it's a very, it can be kind of a very invasive, I guess.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
Coming into your home. If the buyer is still in the home, what are some things they can constantly be doing to make sure the home stays sellable? Cleaning is number one, I'm sure. Getting rid of those things. But is there any other things you're really looking at when it's, hey, we've got a showing coming up, just make sure we're in and out, and here's what you need to be wary of?
I guess, yeah, like first of all, we always tell our sellers any sort of personal information, so like if you're getting mail, you're getting sort of bills, any like paperwork like that, it needs to be locked away. That's the best thing. Also, obviously, like any sort of weapons or firearms, they need to be locked away. Any sort of like Ring cameras or anything in the world that we live in now, we just assume, like I tell my buyer clients when we go into a house, just assume we're on camera. Just assume we're on camera outside of the house. Just assume we're on camera inside of the house. And that's okay. Obviously, like we're there to look at the house during that scheduled time. But as far as like talking about anything that has to do with the house or maybe, putting an offer in or anything, just be aware that we're probably on camera. So those types of things I think are important to think of. Just in addition to, having it clean, and it can be stressful, right? We're all living outside of like buying and selling houses. And so often if we're selling, we're also buying. So we're doing all of that and then also have, jobs and families. So keeping the house clean is very difficult. And that's why, if you do have an option, that you are able to relocate or be somewhere else during that showing time, it's most beneficial. But honestly, at the end of the day, like pricing the house right, so then we can get it sold as quickly as possible. So you are not having to deal with like stopping their life to have people come in and out of your house all the time, because it can be a lot. So we can do things like kind of stack showings or have people, come during the open house to try to just, make it more doable for people. But ultimately just to be aware that, there's about to be a lot of potential buyers in your house, which is a good thing, but also it can be stressful.
So you just mentioned having that home price, right? That's where we're going to go, and we're really going to spend the final minutes of our show this morning talking about that process. But I do have to throw this in there. My journalism class in college, you just made a great point. You're probably being recorded. Indiana's a one-way consent recording state, so nothing you can really do about that. I know some people feel a certain way about coming into a home or whatever. Tough luck. Really, that's nothing you can do about it. So I think that's a great point you bring up for someone coming in and out of the home to look at the house. But let's talk about that pricing. That's the number one thing that's going to help you sell your home, at least from what you kind of said this morning. It's an honest conversation you have to have. It's an emotional conversation as well. How do you start that conversation? How do you really get that through?
Yeah, so absolutely. I always ultimately want to be respectful of the seller. And to be honest, sometimes we find that it may not be appropriate for them to sell if there's a certain number in their mind. And, I'm not going to make that number up, obviously. I want to show facts and data. So we even know that when we price a house with the market, even still, only 75 to 80% of buyers are going to show up to look at that house. So at the end of the day, we want the most amount of buyers to look at the house, right? We know we have the better chance of selling it if we get more eyes on it. And like pricing it just at market, like we're getting 3/4. So at that point, when we price it over even a little bit, like we're losing buyers exponentially. And again, most sellers are buyers. Like we are educated people in the world today. Gone are the days where your realtor found you your house, right? Like that is not I would say, the job of a real estate agent anymore. Obviously, we are able to do that a lot of times, but like with Zillow and third-party sites and the MLS, that information comes so quick. So really, it's the other things that we're doing on the back end, right? And helping that sale go through. I think that so often people just are unaware of, to be honest.
I think the biggest asset that you're going to be able to provide too is the timeliness of getting that home an offer, getting it sold, and getting you into your next home, especially if you're working in a situation where you need to sell that home to buy your next home, which we've talked about that a little bit. What are some ways that you guys in your agency are able to kind of gauge the market so you know coming in, hey, this is where this home is probably going to sell. Let's have that conversation. Or resources you guys are able to use?
Yeah, I mean, we use like local resources, MLS, NAR. So we're able to see, like right now, we know that days on market, about 2 to 3 weeks, right? So when we are listing a house, we know, depending on the price point, like we go to list it and a week, we should have 3 to 5 showings. Like we know that if it's priced at the market based on the buyer demand right now. And so if it's less than that, that's telling us, hey, we may be a little bit overpriced. And if we get way more than that, then that's like, oh, that's fantastic. Now we may be able to negotiate a better offer for our seller. So we have different metrics that we know. And if we're a couple of weeks on market and we're looking around and we really are wanting that feedback. So we're getting the feedback from like the listing agent. And that's really important because I don't think sometimes sellers are aware that when you have buyers that come in your house, sometimes they are going to be so brutally honest, right? And so those things, if there's anything that sticks out about your house, buyers are going to tell you, right? And so obviously we try to be very respectful and like kind of field that the best we can. But sometimes that feedback does come directly because the technology is at our fingertips and we want our sellers to have access to, the quickest information. And so sometimes that will come directly there. So, just to be aware of those types of things. But when we go to sell it, if we list it too high and we know we're not getting any showings, the feedback of the showings that we're getting is, oh, it's overpriced. We're looking around at the other, competition, if you will, and it's going under contract in less days. We know it's the price. So if we're able to bring that down, that helps. But ultimately, at that point, we're chasing the market. And we know that if we start too high, statistically, we're going to close at a lower dollar amount than if we would have just priced it at market or competitively to begin with.
And longer over time.
Yes,
You're going to
absolutely.
spend longer trying to get that house sold more than likely.
And you start to think about the things that roll into owning a house for longer than you want when it's on the market. So do you still have a mortgage on that? You're paying utilities, like all of those things, taxes. Is it really worth the $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000, in the scheme of things when you look at it?
And gathering kind of what, I feel like is the best. I prefer, at least as a seller, and I'll get into the situation at some point in my lifetime. I think getting multiple offers and being able to negotiate, getting that, maybe, I don't want to say pricing it under market, but pricing it at market is way more valuable to me and be able to kind of pick and choose my offer situation than trying to get more on my house than I think it's worth.
Sure, absolutely, yes. Unfortunately, I try to be very transparent and I'm the professional, right? So I'm not the emotional one. And we know, like, if we price it here, right, and I look at all of the competition, then we can anticipate we're going to get a lot of offers. My seller we most recently went on the market with, we priced it competitively. It was, in excellent condition, and we got 6 offers. It was fantastic. We were able to negotiate a wonderful transaction for him. And at that point, it's just smooth sailing on the other end. And so obviously you can't guarantee that with everyone, but when you're able to, work with your sellers, like they did everything to get the house, in the perfect condition. And then we worked together to get it listed, and ultimately, we're very excited because, we're going to be able to sell it for, even more than we listed it for. So
you talked about that offer process. I think that's a great place to stop. We're going to talk about the offer process, selecting the great offer, actually making the sale on the home, and then those next steps next week. But Stacie, if anybody is in any position right now, whether it's buying, selling, looking for estate help, right sizing, as we like to say, how can they get a hold of you and start that conversation?
Sure. The most direct way to get a hold of me would be my cell phone. It's 574-334-7105. You could also email me at lakecitystacie. That's lakecitystacie, STACIE at kw.com. And we also have a new office downtown at 212 South Buffalo Street in Warsaw.
Yeah, it looks great. Make sure you check it out if you're in the area. If you need any sort of real estate advice, looking for a realtor professional in the area, Stacie is your go-to. That's Stacie Schlichtenmeyer. I'm Balin Height. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you next week. More with your next chapter.